Hello every pony and welcome to Brony FanFics. Today, Crisis Equestria, finally. I don't feel well, so this is probably not going to go very well, but whatever. I'm not editing that out because I'm lazy. Anyway, enough about my suffering. Crisis Equestria, Chapter 11, Inflammable. One thing was for certain, Twilight thought, and that was that she just could not settle on a solution for one seemingly simple situation that was sapping all of her sensibility, slowly but surely stripping her of what sense of sanity she still sustained. The dilemma was perplexing at best, confounding at worst. Was TikTok a complete and utter imbecile, or the smartest pony alive? Normally Twilight was able to discern quite quickly another unicorn's intellect and aptitude with magics, but she now admitted that perhaps the scholarly and academic measurements weren't the absolute answer. She knew spell modification was possible, but in her experience it was mostly theories, rarely practiced, and rarer still, commonplace. But TikTok had, with her usual attitude, guided Twilight through a process she thought preposterous, as if she were going over a baking recipe. Twilight wasn't particularly awed. She just rather put off that some pony with such a lacking knowledge of fundamental magic forces could have such a wide understanding of more obscure and specialized areas. It was like meeting a brilliant arcane physicist who couldn't do simple addition. And now, here she was walking along and generating an aura of powerful magics that surrounded more than herself. Her personal temperature aura was now more accurately a party temperature aura. It wasn't perfect, since they were pressed for time and travelling in a larger group than TikTok would have liked, though she meant no offence to either the stallion accompanying them. TikTok maintained her own aura in order to serve as leader and relieve stress from Twilight, whose spell had been manifested as a sort of bubble around them. Not a very large bubble either, as keeping it too large took a lot of concentration, and she had to keep it maintained for seemingly 3 full days. Perhaps more of their progress wasn't as expedient as TikTok assured them it would be. They were thereby forced to travel rather tightly knit, in a rather uncomfortable grouping that left them all in too close of proximity of one another. And it was hot, very hot. As Pinky so bluntly put it, it was like walking near, well, an active volcano. I don't know which is worse, Rarity groaned as the party rather clumsily climbed a small step. The ravaging all this heat is doing to my beautiful mane, or the smell of the rest of you. Ugh. Much too much pony sweat for such a confined space. And I know some of us, as she glanced at Applejack and Rainbow Dash, haven't properly bathed once since we got to this world. Applejack rolled her eyes. Well, shoot, Rarity. I know the answer to that. Neither. What's worse is you bitching and moaning. Whoa, calm down, Applejack. About it. Even y'all pardon my language, give my ears a rest, Sugar Cube. What stinks is that I'm not able to fly normally. Not with this much heat in the air. Rainbow sighed as she uneasily flexed her wings. It is way too hot out here. A lot more than I thought it'd be. And there ain't any room in this bubble either to really stretch out. I'm getting restless here. We Pegasi need lots of room, and we sure don't like all this heat. So I think maybe Rainbow Dash is like claustrophobic. Well, what did you expect? Rarity huffed. A sauna? If it were, you would be certain I wouldn't be making any complaints. Heavens, I could certainly use a trip to a spa when this is all over. I might even have to spring for the deluxe treatment. My poor mane. There she goes again, thinking about herself than the rest of us. Applejack huffed. Why Wait, who's saying this? Might be Rarity. Why, Applejack, what a thing to say! Surely you think this a little much, Why, I'd bet you'd rather be back on the fields doing manual labour than this horrid work. Girls, really, Twilight groaned. It's enough trouble trying to focus on keeping this spell steady without you all bickering back there. Can we at least save the arguments until we hit the first checkpoint, please? How much longer is it anyhow? Rainbow asked. We've been walking for hours already, and all the heat is making me thirsty. I imagine the prima donna here is the thirstiest of all of us. What with all the complaining. Rarity narrowed her eyes. Really, Rainbow Dash? Name-calling? How uncouth. Tick-Tock from several paces ahead called back. It's beyond the next ridge, not much longer. Come on, every pony, we're almost there. True enough, the climb wasn't very far, but it wasn't a matter of distance so much as difficulty at this point. The group had very cautiously tread across the ground as they would normally have been much less concerned about it, coordinating climbs over boulders and crags, crevices and cliffs. Winding paths and twisting slopes all proved to them like trying to solve some sort of puzzle. Mostly the Pegasi had to flutter low while the Earth Ponies and Unicorns were forced to crowd together, hence Rarity's grievances. Tick-Tock's separation from them in her own private bubble made her slightly envious. Only slightly, of course, because Tick-Tock was responsible for helping the group across other areas that alone would seem only slightly exerting, but in this ball of ponies state were proving rather impossible. Small chasms, no wider than the one Fluttershy remembered from Dragon Mountain, became gorges. Such a problem presented itself to them now, and for a brief moment they all became rather worried that they'd made a terrible decision coming this way. This was no matter a hop, skip and a jump would solve, and looking down, of course, always made matters worse. Falling miles to one's doom was bad enough. At least in a long fall they could depend on Rainbow's speed or even Twilight's magic to come to their rescue. Falling a few yards into a slowly churning river of molten rock was a different kind of scary. This sure wasn't on the map, Applejack frowned. No, it wasn't. Volcanic regions changed their layout on a rather consistent basis. Tick-Tock admitted glumly. I have to update the map every time I come. Most things tend to remain the same or similar. But this is not a good change. I wonder when it happened. There used to be a very nice rock bridge here. Can't we just go around? Rainbow asked. Sadly not. Until we hit the second ridge, this is the only path in or out. At least it will be for a few dozen years. When this magma cools, it'll make a nice little shortcut. Not that helps us right now in the least. Great, just great. Wait, who's saying this? Rainbow. Great, just great. How are we supposed to cross this all at once? We can't exactly jump it together. We'd risk misstepping and getting all of us killed. Rainbow grunted. Some plan this was. What a waste of time. She turned quickly to Twilight. See, I told you we should have taken the longer way. Don't look at it so negatively, Rainbow Dash, Twilight said calmly. Think of it as a test. If we can solve this problem, we can solve others as well. We just have to think it out a little, that's all. We have the time. If this route is going to save us as much of the trip as Tick-Tock says it is, just keep calm, focus, and we'll get through it. You would think of it like a test, Twilight, Rainbow huffed. Is this multiple choice, or true or false? Pinky bounced. Or maybe it's like an essay exam. Oh, I hate those. Writing is so much harder when you don't have the magic. I remember once I had to do one of those for school, and I was on kind of a sugar high, and it ended up. Oh, it's so hard to read fast, like Pinky would. Ended up just a mess of scribbles and lines, and I couldn't even read it the next day. Nah, this looks more like a fill in blank. See, because there's a big gap in the middle that should be filled in with something, and not that kind of. Twilight exasperated. Started. Wait, say that last part again? Well, I was until I was interrupted, Pinky huffed. Like I was saying, there used to be a rock bridge here, like TikTok said, right? So the answer would be rock bridge. And the question would be like, there used to be a blank here, and before that, Pinky, Twilight groaned. Oh, about my essay? Well, the topic was about a book we were reading, The Great Galaxy? I forget the title. I didn't really like the book too much, and there was a lot of really weird dialogue in it. Pfft, who calls anyone old sport, really? I mean, Twilight narrowed her eyes, and got this very, very suddenly grumpy look. Pinky laughed nervously. Oh, right, fill in the blank? Yes, thank you. Twilight nodded. She hummed for a moment, then brightened up suddenly. Aha! That's it! Pinkie Pie, I don't often say this, but you are a genius. Well, thanks, Twilight. I appreciate it. Pinky nodded gratefully. Why am I a genius again? Tick-tock, Twilight said quickly. You can make this jump, can't you? Seriously? It's barely longer than I am. Fool's play, Tick-tock replied. Go ahead and jump over then. Tick-tock raised an eyebrow. Very well, I suppose you have a sort of idea. She reared back and took a running jump over the gap. Simple as it looked. Well then, now that I'm over it on the other side, care to tell me exactly what we're doing? We're going to fill in the blank, as Pinky put it. Twilight smirked. See, the problem is that we can't all jump at once in order to stay under my aura, because that's risky, as Rainbow Dash pointed out. So we're going to put another bubble on the other side, the blank spot, for ponies on this side to jump into on that side, filling it in. So Rarity, I need you to help Tick-tock power her aura so that it expands outwards enough to allow other ponies to stand inside it. Tick-tock's smile faded. Are you serious, Twilight? I don't have that kind of... Rarity's already proven herself to charge her magic exceedingly well, despite not having much prior knowledge of it. She's a natural. With her help, we were able to match my barrier spell back in the city, remember? Tick-tock fidgeted a little. Yes, but only just barely, and not for very long. Look, Twilight huffed, you don't have to match my aura, only extend yours out a little. You can do that enough on your own, and with Rarity's help you can hold it long enough for every pony else to jump over it. It can't be that difficult. I suppose... Are you sure about this, Twilight? Rainbow said quickly. You're putting an awful lot of faith in her abilities. And mine as well, Rarity huffed. I think I can handle my part of the plan if Twilight thinks I can. Have a little confidence, Rainbow Dash. The longer we debate the issue, the less magic we'll have to work with, Twilight said firmly. Rarity and Tick-tock will likely have to drain an awful lot of energy to make this work, so the quicker we get every pony over, the better. I have the utmost confidence in Twilight's idea, Rarity agreed. Let's try it. It certainly is a better solution than just standing here in all this heat. If you're all sure you can handle it, Applejack gulped. Rarity settled herself and channeled her own magic, causing Tick-tock's horn to glow a bright blue. Tick-tock grit her teeth and fueled her own spell with the additional force granted. Her aura pulsed outwards, and suddenly enough of a bubble large enough to hold several ponies. She blinked a few times, surprised that this seemed so easy. Fascinating, she said to herself, more than any pony else. Twilight's right. Rarity, I think you're getting better at this. I feel much stronger than usual. I can't imagine what kind of power you could wield. Twilight, if Rarity were to do this for you. See, Twilight smirked. Told you two could handle it together. Now then, let's start getting you ponies across. Who wants to go first, Piece of cake, Rainbow boasted as she stepped forward. Watch and learn, ponies. She snapped her wings open to flex them a bit, ignoring a flustered splutter from both Rarity and Twilight, who got faces full of feathers before taking a graceful leap over the gap. Taking the time to casually flip around in the air, she instantly regretted taking too long outside the bubble, landing quickly and giving a loud wince. Ah! Hot! Sweet Celestia, it's like I just took a bath in boiling water. Well, we are in an area of a few dozen active volcanoes, TikTok quipped. One would think that it makes it a tad hotter than usual, Hey Twi, Rainbow called over, ignoring TikTok. Any way you can extend that bubble of yours over a little so we don't have to be exposed mid-jump? I feel like I've got a sunburn all over. Right, Twilight nodded. Simple enough. A little concentration later and her bubble changed shape into a more elongated form, allowing it to cover most of the gap. This forced the others on her side to crowd in a little, much to Rarity's displeasure. Now then, we see that TikTok Shield is working fine, so who wants to go next? Well, shoot, I'll do it. Applejack nodded. Looks easy enough. I've jumped wider. Careful now, Twilight said cautiously. Rainbow Dash is able to fly across. You're going to have to jump it, and there's not much room for a running start. Shuck, Sugar Cube. This ain't no trouble. Applejack smiled. These legs of mine ain't just good for bunking apples, you know. She took a small step backwards, then leapt forward, and with a great push from her hind legs, jumped across the gap. No trouble at all. See? This looks fun, Pinky bounced. I always did like the lava levels. Can I go next, huh? Can I? Yes, fine. Just be careful, Pinky. This isn't a... Twilight began. Pinky had turned it out in order to take a rather exaggerated leap across. She gasped as Pinky looked like her jump wasn't anywhere near good enough to make it across. Pinky! Rainbow Dash quickly bolted forward and made to charge out of her side bubbles. Wait, what? Rainbow Dash quickly bolted forward and made to charge out of her side's bubble to grab the tumbling earth pony. Pinky was just barely about to miss the other edge of the gap, but then to every pony's surprise, Pinky somehow managed to bounce off the edge and bound well over Rainbow Dash's head, clearing the gap which seemingly more ease than Applejack had. Wait, what in the... Did you just... How? Rainbow Dash flustered. Psh, piece of cake, Dashy. Or a piece of pie, rather, Pinky snickered, waving her hoof dismissively. Tutorial levels are really forgiving anyway. No trouble at all. I have no words. TikTok shook her head. Well, right, Twilight coughed. Okay then. I suppose we can help clear some room for Flathoof and Rarity to make their jumps in if the other two Pegasi go across. Fluttershy, Mr. Lockwood? There's enough room for you two to glide over. Oh dear, Fluttershy gulped. Do I have to? Nothing to be afraid of, my dear, Lockwood smiled earnestly. But it's so wide, she shuddered. I can't do this. Would you like me to carry you across, perhaps? He suggested. Oh, I don't want to be in trouble, she began to say. Just then, Rarity shot her a very quick look and Fluttershy gulped again. Well, I suppose if you want to... Fluttershy awkwardly got onto his back and held on tight. This is a little awkward. I don't usually take rides from any pony. No trouble. Just keep a loose grip and mind on your legs. Oh, and mind your legs. Lockwood huffed. The sudden addition of weight was noticeable enough, but he didn't seem too bothered by it as he spread his wings and pushed off one side of the gap. and glided over towards the other. Carefully, he said behind to his passenger, "Just remember, don't look down, okay?" "Down?" she peeped, unable to resist the temptation. The sight of her and Lockwood slowly gliding over a river of deadly magma was enough to make her squeak loudly and tighten her grip, enough that Lockwood had to suppress a wheeze. When they landed safely on the other end, she didn't let go right away, and it took some effort for Lockwood to make her sudden chokehold on him apparent. "Miss Fluttershy?" he breathed. If you could loosen up a tad." "Oh," she realised in a fluster. Releasing herself. "Oh dear, I'm sorry. I'm just, I got a little frightened and, oh no, I hope I didn't hurt you. Are you okay?" "I'm alright," he said as he tugged at his collar. A dainty thing like you choking me to death would probably be the best thing to happen to me out here." Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes. Smooth. "Ahem!" Twilight called from the other side. "One more jumper, every pony. Flathoof, I do believe it's your turn." "Right," he nodded. He took a few steps back and leapt across. Flathoof inwardly brushed off the fact that he'd noticed Applejack had cleared more distance than he had, with less of a start. He had hoped no pony else had noticed. Well now, that was all easy enough," TikTok called over. "Just 2 more." "Rainbow Dash," Twilight called back. "You're going to have to carry Rarity across the gap. She can't keep your side's shield up while focusing on making the jump. At least, I'd rather not risk it." "Piece of cake," Rainbow Dash smirked, gliding over in a flash. Ready for a ride there, oh delicate one?" Humph, Rarity huffed. "Just try not to get your filthy hooves all over me. It's bad enough I have to clean up all this mess I'm already in. Without you—" "I'll take that as a yes," Rainbow interrupted, grabbing Rarity by the sides and gliding back over. "Rainbow Dash, you ruffian! I didn't say I was ready," Rarity snapped. "And that just leaves me," Twilight nodded. "One teleport spell coming up." A brief amount of concentration caused Twilight's projected aura to shrink drastically. Enough just to cover herself, but she knew she didn't need it right now. With a bright flash and small popping sound, Twilight was suddenly gone from one side of the gap and then suddenly on the other side in the midst of her companions. One deep breath later, she re-projected her own aura, allowing Rarity and TikTok to relax their own. With one obstacle behind them, the group continued forward towards the top of the next ridge. They avoided the perilous pitfalls, shaky slopes, and dangerous drops that barred their way, keeping calm and collected despite all the heat and continued challenges presented by the steep climb. Eventually, the top of the ridge was in sight, and at last they had a chance to relax. Thankfully, Twilight's aura was a low power spell, even when it was, as Pinky put it, supercharged. With a little help from Rarity, who found the ease at which she could benefit the magic of other unicorns to be a gift that kept on giving, Twilight was able to greatly extend the size and effect of the bubble, letting all sit in relatively comfort. And thanks to TikTok's map, the spot they'd chosen for their rest stop was able to provide them with something they all sorely needed: real food. Alongside a slowly flowing river of deeply cooled magma, more black than orange or red, sat a series of bushes loaded with tons of little berries that, apart from the 3 Pandemonium natives, no pony had seen the likes of before. They eyed them with caution and concern, because to be fair, they didn't appear very palatable. Red and black with orange veins that pulsed and churned like the lava beside them, these berries didn't just look inedible, they looked downright deadly. "So these are magma berries, huh?" Applejack mused as she examined the bush. Unlike the berry trees and bushes she was accustomed to, this one was completely devoid of leaves and almost entirely covered with berries. She was fascinated just at the prospect of such a thing. The farmer in her could not resist the urge to figure out how this crop grew, and how it worked. She wondered if the same kind of crop concept could be applied to apple trees, allowing for a richer crop without all the hassle of leaves and twigs to clean up. Then again, she was still a mite hesitant to agree that these berries were anything but unsafe to eat. She knew enough from survival training how to spot the difference between poisonous berries and edible ones, but these just perplexed her. Yup, Flathoof smiled. Applejack inwardly flinched at the word, but brushed off the feeling. From what Bunt Cake said, this crop isn't even the best. Those grow closer to the volcano tops. Let's see. What did she say was the way you could tell the quality? The colour, that's right. He casually handled one of the berries in his hoof, showing it off to Applejack. See, the better quality ones are bright orange red. These are more red-black, she said. That the closer the berry looked to hot lava, the spicier, sweeter, and more nutritious it was. I never pegged you for a berry expert, Sugar, Applejack smirked. I'm really not. Though, I'm really not, though I always envied Buncake for knowing so much about growing them. I was kind of hoping for your farm knowledge would be able to help me learn more. Well, without having much experience with them, I can't really answer much. I ain't never seen berries like this before. How do these things grow in these conditions? She asked. No ponies tends to them, right? I can't imagine they'd be safe, unless y'all were a unicorn. I don't rightly know. He shook his head. But you did guess the important bit. Buncake is a unicorn, and after all this, I see the trouble she must go through to harvest these. They're magical, TikTok interjected. The whole northern continent is filled with latent chaotic magics. As she shot a look at Twilight, who ignored it. It makes for some rather strange phenomena. As for the details on these berries, that's not my cup of tea. I just like to snack on them. Magic, huh? Shoot, that ain't nothing I ain't familiar with. We got magical fruits and the like back home too. Zap apples, drake figs, lover's fruit. Things like that. All very unique fruits that only grow and are ripe in the right conditions. Most of them come originally from the Everfree Forest, which, to be frank, sounds an awful lot like this whole chaotic magic thing y'all keep talking about. She ignored Twilight's grumbling. I'm sure with a little time I could figure them out. Granny Smith didn't raise no fool. Enough talk, Pinky pleaded, shoving her way to the bush and wedging herself between Applejack and Flathoof. It's lunchtime. I'm so hungry. I could eat a very big thing. Wait! Flathoof yelped as Pinky grabbed a hoof full and shoved them in her mouth. Pinky chewed and chomped and scarfed down the whole mouthful, and she winced as she swallowed it. To his surprise, she didn't react all the way he was expecting. Oh, my... Wait, who's saying that? Oh, my Celestia! Applejack! And she grabbed the size of the orange pony's face. Tell me there's some way we could grow these at home. This is the best food in the universe. Oh boy, I can't wait to put these in pies and cakes and punch and fizzy drinks and... We get the idea, Rainbow interrupted, putting her hoof over Pinky's ever-moving mouth. I'll try, Applejack said as she squirmed out of Pinky's grip. I suppose I could collect some seeds, give it a go when we get back. Won't hurt to give it a shot. You ate half a dozen, all at once. How? Flathoof said flatly. You're not supposed to eat more than one at a time without a break in between. They're too spicy. Pinky grabbed Flathoof's hoof and enthusiastically shook it. Hi there, my name is Pinkie Pie and I love spicy food. I love sweets and bite-sized snacks, and so magma berries, which are all three, are the best food ever. I also love parties and singing, making ponies laugh and balloons, but that's all beside the point. Liking spicy food is one thing. Fleur shook his head. This is something totally different. How could you possibly build up that kind of tolerance? She puts hot sauce on everything, Applejack explained, even ice cream. That's it? You never cease to amaze and perplex me, Pinkie Pie. Firehoof sighed. Most ponies can't stomach 'em. And you just made it look easy. We all did say I'd like 'em. Applejack shrugged, grabbing one for herself. She casually slipped one in her mouth and bit into it. For a brief second, she felt the urge to spit it out. The spice was overwhelming. Like she'd bit into a hot coal. Then the sweet flavour rushed in and replaced the heat. Applejack tasted super sweet treats before. Zap apples in particular were known for their sweetness. But these tiny berries were packed with the stuff, enough to make the fur on her neck stand on end. You okay there? Fleur smirked at her silence. She turned a little red, embarrassed to be caught looking like she couldn't handle it, and quickly swallowed her mouthful. Hoo-wee! Those things got some kick, I tell you. Told you, Applejack smirked, chomping one down himself. These mild ones are good for starters. I hope your trail takes us near some of the better crops. I bet Pinkie Pie won't be so gung-ho about shoveling them down then, hey? Okay, move aside, Rainbow commanded, pushing her way to the front. You guys aren't the only ones who are hungry, you know. She grabbed one and popped it into her mouth, chewing and swallowing quickly. A few seconds later, her face flushed and grabbed for a little packet of Dollar Blue. Hot bucking hell! It's like I just ate a fire! Who eats this stuff? She started chugging down the packet, finding the other unpleasant toothpaste taste a fresh change from her tongue being on fire. Ah, buck up, Dashy! Pinkie snickered as she chowed down on another few. They're not that spicy. Certainly not as spicy as a rainbow. See, these have flavour. Plenty of bite to it. Maybe a little aggressive, but that's what gives it its charm. Says the pony with the iron stomach, Dash rolled her eyes, taking another swig of her unpleasant but soothing liquid. I don't even know what any of those words mean in context of food, Pinks. Rarity chuckled as she hovered a berry over to herself. They're flavour descriptors, my dear. Usually for wines, mind you, but fruits and berries are used to make wine, so I suppose it might apply here. I never knew you were a sommelier. Sommelier? I don't know. Pinkie? Goes with the territory, Pinkie shrugged. You never asked. Berries were soon enough passed around to the rest of the group. The general consensus was that the magma berries are really, really spicy, but really sweet and tasty once you got past the initial kick. Rarity found their flavour to be quite delightful, and privately hoped as much as Pinkie Pie that Applejack could make them grow properly back at home. The ramifications of making wine from such a delicacy made her a tad giddy, and with Pinkie's out-of-nowhere knowledge of the subject she felt certain that there was a lot of enjoyment to be had. To the group's collective amusement, Twilight proved once again to be utterly intolerant of spicy foods, and was left a sputtering mess for most of their rest hour. Twilight, when will you learn? Rainbow chuckled, having acquired a better taste for the berries herself. She was still taking swigs from the little packets of Dollar Blue, but much less often and with much less ferocity. It's not my fault, Twilight mumbled as she choked a third serving of bland blue liquid. Pinkie said they were sweet. I didn't think they would be that hot. Even after we all told you? Tick-Tock rolled her eyes. Sometimes I wonder about you, Sparkle. If the spice is giving you that much trouble here, Fluff interjected, offering Twilight what looked like one of the branches from the bush. It was slightly burnt looking, and quite thin, with a bright green interior. "What's this?" Twilight slurred as she accepted it. Bunkate told me that the magma berry branches are like little straws. You can suck on them and get the tasty juices inside. The juice in them is a little waxy in texture, but they're instantly soothing for the spice, and it doesn't taste half bad. Here, like this." He chomped down one end of the twig and sucked on it a bit to demonstrate. Twilight followed suit, and her ears perked up as the rush of thick, sweet liquid washed over her tongue and, as advertised, took all the unpleasant sting of the spice with it. "Oh wow, that's incredible! Magical food never ceases to amaze me. To think these wild berries were so spicy, their branches have the method of counteracting it. It's like they want to be eaten." "Hey, how come you never told us about that little trick?" Rainbow Dash mockingly accused. "Truth be told, you're not really supposed to use too much of it, or you might become dependent on it. Only ponies who can't handle the heat, period, should be using it. Hence Twilight's dilemma," Fluff explained. "The branches only carry so much, and if every pony were using it, we'd run out of that before we ran out of berries." The good old cookie-to-milk ratio. The good old cookie-to-milk ratio. Albeit with different variables. Pinky nodded sagely. "Truly second greatest conundrum of our time. Just ahead of why are we here, but behind, shoot, where'd I leave my house keys?" "Well, hopefully Applejack figures out a way to improve upon that," Twilight smirked. "I'd hate to miss out on these trees because I can't handle the spice. Any ideas, Applejack?" Applejack barely heard her. She was more focused on Flathoof, with a magma berry twig in his mouth. She couldn't explain why, but a heavy feeling in her stomach made her think the sight was familiar. A mite too familiar. She didn't like that one bit. She couldn't put her hoof on it, and actually made her more worried. "Applejack?" Twilight prodded again. "Huh? Oh!" Applejack flustered. "Right, well, to be frank, I have to spend a few harvests trying to figure out on their growth cycle before I start worrying about specializing them. Heck, I ain't too sure on how spicy they'd even be, seeing as they're different kinds. Till then, a good glass of cold milk should do the trick." It was good being able to relax for a while, but their rest period soon came to an end. They packed up, filling the empty space of their bags with more berries. Applejack even bagged some of the seeds, hoping they'd survive the trip. They continued back along their path, and barring a few more minor difficulties, it wasn't long before they reached the top of the last ridge and stood under the massive crater of the first actual volcano in their path. TikTok had to explain the great lengths to Twilight and Applejack the night before that avoiding the volcanoes altogether was impossible. The only route that would allow it was so roundabout that it would take triple the time to traverse. It had fewer areas where they could rest, and was riddled with unstable areas that defeated the purpose of skipping the volcanoes at all. The closer they got to the top, the hotter it got, to the point that Rarity had to assist Twilight to keep their bubble at a comfortable temperature. Twilight protested at first, claiming she could handle it herself, but Rarity insisted. She was willing to sacrifice some of her magic if it meant not walking around dripping more sweat. What was worse, the only way past the volcano was through it, via a large crack along the side of that led further in. As the others fussed about the heat, TikTok boosted herself with her magic. Her light blue aura sheathed a small strip of magma that dribbled alongside the rock face. Twilight, curious, asked, "What are you doing? Is that a scan spell?" It looks similar, though I can't really tell what you're scanning for. Yes, it is. What I'm doing with it is simple enough, TikTok said without taking her attention away. I'm taking measurements. Measurements of... TikTok let out a breath. Geothermal readings. Volcanic activity is dangerous, and in this region is chaotic and unpredictable, to a degree. While I can't be 100% certain, I can at least have an idea of how likely a volcano event is. Great, now we have to worry about that too? Rainbow grumbled. Knew this was a bad idea. Unfortunately, without my timekeeper, I'm forced to rely on more elementary readings. Nothing too precise. Still, I'd like to have some sort of idea what to expect, rather than just waltzing in like a bloody idiot. And what did you find out? Twilight asked. She was curious to ask TikTok's methodology. Scan spells were used for medical procedures and construction projects, so seeing one for geology was fascinating. If I'm interpreting the data correctly, I'd say there's a 50% chance of minor activity. 50%? Exclaimed the entire group. Give or take 20. Like I said, my readings might be a little inaccurate, margin of error, and all that rubbish. You've got to be kidding, Rainbow spat. What are we standing around for? This thing could pop its top any second. You're telling me you basically just walked us to a death trap, Fluthoof said, pointing an accusing hoof. Remind me again what part of safe you didn't understand, because this doesn't sound safe at all. Oh dear, Fluttershy whimpered. Maybe I shouldn't have been so assertive. Don't blame yourself, my dear, Lockwood said softly. It's not your fault TikTok failed to inform us of this kind of danger. Really now, we should all be more concerned with getting out of here. Enough yammering, let's move! Every pony calm down. This is nothing to fret over, TikTok said, waving a hoof dismissively. Minor activity does not include eruptions. Minor activity would account for overflow drainage, temperature anomalies, etc. Par of the course, eruptions are a major event. That still doesn't make me feel any better, Twilight said. It's still an awful risk, but a risk of, well, all that other stuff. Isn't there any way to go around this? If I'd known we were going to go through this much trouble, I'd have reconsidered. Trust me, Sparkle. Most things are of little concern. The passage is short, and we need to make good time through, and there won't be any trouble. So stupid, muttered Rainbow. Risking being inside the thing if it blows, I swear, if we all die, I'm so going to say I told you so. Rainbow Dash, please, Rarity chided. You're not helping the matters any, and you're frightening poor Fluttershy. A major event, TikTok said, shooting Rainbow a look, is even easier to predict. By my calculations, there's less than a 3% chance of an eruption, with a 3% margin of error. In my experience, that means we're fine. That's still a 3% chance we get killed, Rainbow stated, ignoring another whimper from Fluttershy. Call me crazy, but I don't like the sound of those odds one bit. We really don't have a choice, TikTok sighed. The alternate route is longer, and no less dangerous. But those dangers are guaranteed, not just probable. Call me crazy, but I'd rather risk a chance than risk a certainty. And the more time y'all spend arguing, the more likely we all are to take a bigger risk, Applejack said, stamping a hoof. So if you don't mind, can we all get a moving? Well said, Applejack, nodded TikTok. Trust me, this won't be any problem at all. I've done this dozens of times. Almost no instance whatsoever, and we have a much more varied and capable group than you give credit for. We'll be fine. The party warily moved forward through a large crack in the side of the volcano wall, wide enough for 2 ponies to comfortably go in side by side, but not quite enough for 3. If it was hot before outside, it was even more so inside, enough that Rarity gladly helped Twilight maintain her spell at a more appropriate level, without any protest. TikTok again took point, explaining that because of volcanic activity, the volcano interior shifted often and was never the same on subsequent visits. When the inside cooled, it often left paths that could conveniently be traversed, though how wide and stable they were was tenuous at best. "You have to tread lightly," she cautioned, demonstratively walking over the rocky bridge. "Some sections might be weak until another lava flow reinforces them. One wrong step and crack." As TikTok set her hoof on the ground, it crumbled beneath her. She tripped and nearly fell into the gaping hole her misstep had left, were not for a quick action of Rainbow Dash, who now held the dangling unicorn by her rear hoofs over a large drop into the volcanic centre. Rainbow furiously beat her wings to keep cool. The rush forward had taken her out of Twilight's aura long enough to expose her to the furious heat of the volcanic interior for a brief second. "Hang on, I gotcha," Rainbow assured her as she pulled her up. "Phew," she exclaimed as she looked back at her wings. The tips of some of the feathers were singed, but luckily no permanent harm had been done. TikTok, visibly shaken, lay flat on the more stable ground. "By the stars, thanks, Rainbow Dash. You're the last pony I expected to rush to my rescue. Nearly brought the ruddy farm, I did." "Yeah, well, I need some pony to yell at, you know. You know, if you wanted to prove that we should watch our step, there were easier ways to do it," Rainbow chided, "and without cooking my feathers either. You alright?" "I've been better, but yes. Now you will see that we just need to tread lightly, and everything will be hit." TikTok raised her ears at the sudden noise. The bloody hell was that? Pinkie Pie raised her hoof and delivered another hiccup. "Sorry, but my pinky sense is acting up again. Oh dear, what lucky coincidence is it this time?" TikTok rolled her eyes. Hiccups, Twilight pondered aloud. "That's new to me. At least it's not a doozy, though. That's what I'd be worried about. I think it's worse than that, Twilight. "It is?" Rainbow asked. "I've never seen this one before either. Worse than a doozy? Really? Hiccups is for Will some pony get her a glass of water? This is ridiculous and wasting time," TikTok cried, exasperated. Earthquake! "See? She got it out," Twilight nodded with a grin. Her smile dropped quickly. "Wait, what?" "Earthquake!" Pinkie yelped, grabbing onto the sides of Twilight's face. "We've got to get out of here." "Okay, every pony, don't panic," Twilight quickly said to the rest. "We've got to move quickly and carefully. No sense in causing trouble and getting out of trouble." "Oh please," TikTok scoffed. "Are we really going to go through this again?" "Just because you doubt it," Rainbow snapped, "doesn't mean the rest of us have to." "Haven't you seen enough to convince you? Even Twilight's come around, and she used to be the biggest doubter of all." "Coincidences, nothing more," TikTok said flatly. "I've seen enough real magic in my lifetime to make me fairly certain these sort of premonitions are a bunch of bunk, no matter how contrived they may be. Of all the... We can argue later," Twilight interrupted. "For now, we need to move. Go! Go!" Fine. But don't get sloppy just because you're in such a bloody hurry," TikTok sighed. I still don't see what all the fuss is. Earthquakes aren't just spur of the moment. If there were a quake, we would have felt a tremor by... She was interrupted by a fierce rumble that made the entire volcano shake. Why do I keep getting bleeding interrupted? Minor activity, huh? Rainbow spat. Twilight shouted, "Move!" Her horn shimmered brightly, bathing the group in a much larger aura as they ran, letting them keep a fast pace without worry of separation. It almost served to protect them, as tumbling rocks and dirt fell all around them. The other end of the rocky path loomed ahead, a silver of light, their beacon of hope for escape. A loud crack behind them signalled that the path was crumbling in their wake. Twilight, who was taking up the rear, chanced to glance behind and saw the thick cracks chasing them. The light got closer. The cracks gave way to tumbling rock, revealing the hot glow of magma below them. They could almost see outside again. The cracking earth raced ahead, and Twilight nearly tripped as a long strip of rock beneath her shattered. Applejack, who had taken the lead, could feel the ground beneath her own hooves began to come apart. A yell behind her. The ground had given way and was breaking away in full. With a strong push, she jumped for the crumbling edge of the path. If she could make it, she hoped, her friends could grab onto her as she pulled them up. She fell terribly short. Right, that's chapter 11. Sorry for all the coughing and sniffing and stuff. But yeah, thanks for listening, and hopefully you'll join me next time. Until then, keep spreading the magic of friendship, and I'll see you then.